Chapter 10, Section 8 is spheres, and our definition of sphere is points in space that are a fixed distance from a given point. Points in space that are a fixed distance from a given point. And I don't have a better definition for the center of a sphere other than the center. And if this is your sphere, the center is this point right here that's in the middle, right at the end of my pen, right in the center of the circle. The radius of a sphere goes from the center to a point on the sphere. Hemisphere is a half of a sphere, and the great circle is the circle that divides the sphere into two hemispheres. So it's the biggest part of the sphere. This is our sphere right here. We divide it into two hemispheres, and this right here is the great circle. Our volume formula is 4/3 pi r cubed. And I like to rewrite it. So right here we have to figure out the radius, which is 12. So for our volume, we will have 4/3 times pi times 12 cubed. And if you multiply that out, you get 2,304 pi inches cubed. And if you multiply that, 7,234.56 inches cubed. Letter B, volume is 4/3 pi r cubed. We only have a hemisphere, so I'm going to take a half of that times 4/3 times pi times 15 cubed. Grab your calculator and multiply that. And when you do, you end up with 7,065 meters cubed, or 2,250 pi meters cubed. Example C asks us to find the diameter of a sphere when the volume is 36,000 pi. So our volume is 4/3 pi r cubed, and that's going to match up with 36,000 pi. Pi's cancel. To get rid of the 4/3, you are going to multiply both sides by 3/4, and you have r to the third equals 1,728. Now I don't think you guys have done cube roots yet. To do cube roots, you do your math key, and you see right here in number 4 is cube root, and then enter 1728, and that tells you that your radius is 12. Example D, find the radius of a sphere with a volume 2,304 pi. So we will do 4/3 pi r cubed equals 2,304 pi. Pi's cancel. To get rid of the 3/4, you multiply, to get rid of the 4/3, you multiply both sides by 3/4, and you end up with r to the third equals I think I did my work wrong on this one. This should be r to the third equals 27,000. And your radius equals 30. And with this one, they asked the diameter. So the diameter will be twice that. And with this one, you end up with the 1728, and your radius equals 12. Sorry, I looked at my wrong example on my paper. The next problem, sporting goods store sells exercise balls in 2 different sizes. Standard has a 22-inch diameter, which means our radius is 11. And the other one has the jumbo diameter, which means our radius is 17. So we want to know how many times as great is one than the other. So you will have 4/3 pi times 17 to the third, and 4/3 times pi times 11 to the third. And if you go ahead and punch those into your calculator, 4/3 times pi times 17 to the third is 20,569. 4/3 times pi times 11 to the third is 5,572. And if you divide those two, it is roughly 3.7 times bigger. I'm going to skip example B and go to the surface area of a sphere. Surface area is 4 pi r squared. Let's do example B first. Our radius will be 25. So our surface area will be 4 times pi times 25 squared. And when you multiply that out, you get 2,500 pi, or 7,850 centimeters squared. Example B, this circle is pi r squared. So if 49 is the area, pi r squared, 49 pi. Square rooting both sides, your radius is 7. So finding the surface area then, 4 pi r squared is 4 pi times 7 squared. And when you multiply that out, you get 196 pi. And multiplying that, 615.44 miles squared. Big circle, big sphere. Letter C, surface area of a sphere with a diameter of 76. Well, if the diameter is 76, your radius then is 38. So then you have 4 pi times 38 squared. Punch that into your calculator, and you get 5,776 pi, or if you multiply that out, 18,136.64 centimeters squared. Letter D asks us to find the volume of a sphere, if this is your surface area. So we have 4 pi r squared equals 324 pi. Pi's cancel. When you divide both sides by 4, r squared equals 81. And our radius is 9. We were asked to find the volume. So volume is 4/3 pi times radius cubed. So 4/3 pi times 9 cubed. And that ends up being 972 pi. or if you multiply that out, 3,052 inches cubed. And one more page. If the radius is multiplied by 2, what's going to happen to the volume? The volume would be multiplied by 2 to the third power, which is by 8. And the surface area would be multiplied by 2 squared, which would be times 4. Letter B, if the radius is multiplied by 1/3, the volume would be multiplied by 1/3 to the third power, which would be 1/27th. And the surface area would be multiplied by 1/3 squared, which would be 1/9. I'm going to do the volume of both of these first. Volume of the cylinder right here is pi r squared times height, and then we have 1/2 the volume of the sphere, so 1/2 times 4/3 pi r cubed. The diameter is 12, so the radius will be 6, so that will be pi times 6 squared times 9 plus 1/2 4/3 times pi times 6 to the third. And I'm going to show a little bit of work here. This becomes 324 pi. This becomes 96 pi. Nope, that's not 96 pi, is it? 6 to the third times 4 divided by 3, about 144 pi. And then when you add those together, your volume is 468 pi, or if you like that as a number, we'll call that 1469.52. This is our volume, so it would be inches cubed. Our volume here for letter B, we're going to subtract the volumes. So we will have pi r squared times height, and then we will subtract half, because it's a hemisphere, 4/3 pi r cubed. So we have pi times 3 squared times 5 minus 1/2 times 4/3 times pi times 3 to the third. So we have 45 pi subtract 18 pi. So I end up with 27 pi, and that becomes 84.78 cubic feet. Now surface area here, we're going to have to do the lateral area, which is pi times diameter times height. So that's our lateral area. Then we need the area of that circle, which is pi r squared. And then we need half of this sphere, so 1/2 for pi r squared. 1/2 for pi r squared. Sorry about that. This is a height right here. So our lateral area is pi times the diameter, which is 6, times the height, which is 5. The bottom base is pi times 3 squared. And then we have a half of a sphere, which is 1/2 of 4 times pi times 3 squared. So 30 pi plus 9 pi plus 18 pi ends up being 57 pi. And if you like that as a decimal, 178.98 square feet. And this one is actually going to be the same formula for surface area. We're going to have a half of the sphere, so 1/2 4 pi r squared. The lateral area here, which will be pi times diameter times height. And then the circle right here, which will be pi times radius squared. So 1/2 4 pi times 6 squared plus pi times diameter times height plus pi times radius squared. That becomes 72 pi plus 108 pi plus 36 pi. So 216 pi, or if you prefer to multiply that, 678.24.